Hello, my name is Michelle with Books Cause Insomnia. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to go over my top 15 books of 2022. I wanted to go ahead and do my top 15 because I'm including my favorite nonfiction and my favorite classics in there. I'm not going to put the nonfiction or the classics in any particular order. The classics, I'm thinking are already considered really great. Otherwise they wouldn't be considered a classic, right? Or by most people, by the experts, whoever they are. And then as far as the nonfiction books go, well, I feel kind of funny rating someone's life from best to worst, right? There's something about that just feels a little weird to me. So I'm not going to put those in order. They just happen to be my favorite books of the year. All of these books were 5-star reads for me. They're all books that really touched me in some way. They're all books that I learned something from and that I've been thinking about off and on ever since I read them. Also, all of these books spoke to my soul in some way. So the first one I want to mention is Open Book by Jessica Simpson. I wasn't expecting this. I kind of viewed her the way that she's portrayed on The Newlyweds. If you're my age, you might have seen it. It was I think the first reality TV show of a husband and wife, and it was on MTV, and I thought they just had the perfect marriage and they were this great couple. And now that I've listened to her book, I understand that there's a lot more to it than that. But Jessica is a beautiful writer, and she's a lot smarter than she comes off as being on that show. It's a coming of age book. It starts when she's a child and goes all the way up until... Would you stop? Sorry. Olive is messing with my phone stand. It goes all the way up until right when the book was published. And she is somebody who kept a diary throughout her life every day. So her memory of the past is a lot better than mine, for example, will ever be. But I just felt so attached to her. I feel like she's a friend of mine. I mean, she has no idea who I am, but to me, she's a friend of mine. And I was really touched by the book and just what is in her heart. And she's just a very beautiful person, not just on the outside, but on the inside too. And I could really relate to her relationship with John Mayer. He was not anywhere near as nice as I would have thought he was. And the manipulation that she went through was kind of a lot. The next nonfiction book that I want to mention to you is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. I think a lot of us are obsessed with this book right now. It was really, really good. This is a book about a girl whose mother decides that she wants her to be an actress. Now, Jennette didn't want to be an actress. Her mom wanted her to be an actress. So her mom wanted to live her dreams through her daughter. And this book really goes into all of the manipulation and strife that goes into that and how much her mom abused her. It's a lot. Be prepared. It is a lot to hear, but it was a really good book. Her writing is really good, and she really is good at explaining what happens and how it makes her feel. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, you gonna go back to bed? Sorry, Olive is a little protective tonight. It's New Year's Day, and we didn't have a very good night last night with all the fireworks. But her strength and her ability to stand by what she feels and what she believes and be who she really is amazing. And I know listening to the book, she kind of comes off like she doesn't think that she's that strong or that good at standing to what she believes in. But at that age, I know I'm quite a bit older than Jennette. I might be old enough to be her mom. Anyway, that is a very young age to come to those kind of realizations. And I just really recommend this book. The next book that I want to talk to you about is My Government Means to Kill Me by Rasheed Newsome. This book is about a gay man who moves to New York City. Oh, he's also a black gay man, which is an important part of the story. He moves to New York City in the 80s during the AIDS pandemic when he's still a teenager. And it's a really good coming of age story. There's a lot of history in this book about the gay movement in the 80s, about what gay men went through with AIDS, about what minorities went through being gay and having AIDS and or both, whatever. It was really good. It was hard hitting. I feel like a part of it has stuck with me on that one as well. And he's so vulnerable and honest, and it's very crass. There's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of sex. There's a lot of vulgar sex, but it's part of his story. It's his story. I feel differently about that when I'm hearing someone's story as opposed to a fictional book. And I just thought it was amazing. It was beautiful. I loved it. I hope he writes more books because it left off in the 80s and I want to know what happened in his life since then. I think this would be a good movie too. So we'll see if that ever happens. But I definitely recommend this one if you want to understand that time or that place or that movement in our history. The next nonfiction memoir that I want to talk about is also, I think, considered a classic by a lot of people. So I thought I would use this book to bridge from nonfiction into classics, and that is Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl. And this one is the definitive edition. What that means is this is the full edition. The one that I read in high school was not the definitive edition. They took a good chunk of the book out because they didn't, I don't know, they edited it out. And I found her to be so much more endearing with what was taken out, put back in there. I'm not saying I didn't like the book in high school, but it just meant so much more to experience Anne in such a raw way, such a raw, honest way. I mean, to me, that's what makes a good memoir, is somebody is just so vulnerable and naked. I mean, you know, emotionally. I kind of felt like Anne was a friend of mine too by the time I was done with the book, and I felt so attached to her. And I already knew how it was going to end, but I still cried when it ended that way. Anytime I see anything about her, I want to read it or watch it. I'm just very invested in her story. And this is another memoir that took place in a moment of our history that would be worth learning about. The first classic I want to mention to you is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I'm going to assume that you guys know what these classics are about. What I want to say about this book is it just really emphasizes feeling guilty, feeling judged, and I felt like it was very feminist, and I found Hester's strengths to be very inspiring, and I thought it was so beautiful. It was so beautifully written. And I fell in love with this book right away. I was maybe not even, well, I don't even think I had got to the first chapter yet, because that introduction is something else, right? If you've read this, you probably remember what I'm talking about. I was in love with it during the introduction. And I was just so enamored by this story and by Nathaniel Hawthorne's writing. Now, if you've read any of his other books and you think they're worth reading, let me know, because I have not read any of his other books. The next one I want to mention is Little Women. I loved this book. It was the first book I read in 2022. It was a wonderful way to start off the year. Not only do I love this book, I love both of the movies that I've seen from it, which is the 94 version and the newer one that I think is 2000. I do prefer the 94 version just for my own little personal reasons. Also, when I was reading the book, I was picturing the actors and actresses from the 94 version, except Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh will be Amy forever in my mind. She just is. But the rest of the cast was from the 94 version, not, I just looked it up, not the 2019 version. I found it very comforting about the chapters of our lives, how things pass. Things don't always go our way, but it's going to be okay. I don't want to say things happen as they're supposed to, because sometimes some pretty terrible things happen, and it's hard to figure out how to decide that, oh yeah, it was just supposed to happen that way. It's like, when you're talking about tragedy or something, it's kind of hard to do that, right? But I get it, for the most part, that's probably is the case. And I just found this book to be so comforting. Marmee was my favorite character. I found her to be absolutely lovely. And I really loved Amy too. I loved Amy's letters from when she was abroad, and I loved how much growth she had in this book. I'm a big personal growth person. You're probably going to hear about it a lot throughout the rest of this video, because to me, that just really stands out, and it grabs my heart in a way that characters that don't grow don't. Yeah. The last classic that I want to mention to you is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I just thought this book was so luscious in the characters and the descriptions and the traveling and how long it took to travel and the different things that the characters went through. I just really loved it. And it was not at all what I thought it was going to be, because I didn't find it to be at all like Frankenstein is in TV shows and stuff. So it was quite the surprise. It was very moving for me. It was very poetic. And I want to reread this one too. And then this one is also a bridge into my fiction books of 2022. My number 8 favorite book of 2022 is what inspired me to read Frankenstein, and that is The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. This book was a lot. It's about sisters who are growing up at their grandma's mansion, and their grandma is a brilliant psychiatrist, Dr. Helen Hildreth, and she brings home a girl and asks them to help take care of her. And I don't think I want to say much else. This book is just, it's quite the ride. There's a lot of creepiness to it. There are Frankenstein vibes to it, almost more to me than the book, because the book wasn't what I thought it was going to be. There's a couple twists that come that I thought were very brilliant, but then there's one at the end that knocked my socks off, and it was stellar. And I just thought it was amazing the way the author put this twist in there, and I don't think anybody saw it coming. It was pretty amazing. My number 7 favorite book of the year is one that you're probably really tired of hearing about at this point. I just read it in October, and it's all I've been talking about since, I feel like anyway, and that's The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. I read this as part of the Killer Reads book club with AJ Dunn, and I just loved it so much. I had no idea how much I was going to love this book. I tried reading it years ago before I moved to Las Vegas when I was still in Florida. I kind of couldn't get into it. I wasn't really in a reading mood at that point, though. I was kind of in a funk, and I just couldn't get into it. But boy, when I picked it up this time, I couldn't put it down. I love unreliable narrators. I love slow burn books. So I guess I'm a little different. I know a lot of people don't care for slow burn books, and they don't care for unreliable narrators. They also don't like unlikable characters. She's not a very likable character, although by the end of the book, I started to really like Rachel. And Rachel had a lot of personal growth, which to me really meant a lot. There's some parts of this book that talk about abuse and how it can affect a person that really I just found very touching, and they made me cry, and I thought it was so good. So if you're looking for a unreliable narrator, unlikable characters, a slow burn book with a lot of growth and that might make you cry, pick it up. Number 6, The Dutch House by Ann Patchette. This book is about Danny and his sister Maeve and their life growing up in the Dutch house and their life afterwards. And it just really delved into the sibling relationship. Especially for me, it really felt close to my heart because it was about the brother-sister relationship. I have 2 brothers, so it just meant a lot to me. I know a lot of women really like books about sisters, but I don't have a sister, so it doesn't really hit me the same way. I felt like I was in this book. It felt so vivid to me. The writing has this beautiful rhythm to it that I really enjoyed. And I've now read 3 books by Ann Patchette. I think this is a really good first book, at least of the 3 that I've read. It just made my heart sing. Number 5, Notes on an Execution. This book is about a man who's on death row for murder, for murdering multiple women. And it goes into his feelings and why he is the way he is, why he did what he did. But it goes even deeper into the women in his life. The detective that got him locked up, his wife, his mother, his niece. I thought it was a really good look at our justice system in the sense of executions and whether or not I think they should be legal. It goes very deep into the subject and it covers quite a few angles of it, but it's not real pushy. It's not trying to push a certain agenda. It's trying to lead the reader to come to whatever conclusion they want to come to, which I thought was wonderful. And I didn't feel like the book was real in my face. It wasn't trying to push yes or no. It was just examining whether or not execution is a good idea. I thought the author did a really good job of it. It was a little bit slow at times, but it was just so creatively put together. I think she did a lot of research, and I thought she just did a really stellar job of writing the book. I definitely recommend it. Number 4 is The Bodyguard by Katherine Center. This one stars a bodyguard, or a executive protection agent as she's called. Her name is Hannah, and she has, this is awful, she's just been dumped by her boyfriend, who's also a bodyguard. And her boyfriend dumps her right after her mom dies, which is awful. What kind of a jerk, right? So she gets hired to go be a bodyguard for this famous actor named Jack. And he is one of those sexiest man alive for multiple years, according to People magazine. And he's been in a bunch of movies. And she kind of feels like, maybe like a lot of us do, like she already knows who he is. But she finds out that he's so much more than what meets the eye in the movies that he's in or the interviews that she's seen. She finds out that he's a real person underneath all the glitz and glam. He doesn't want his family to know that his safety is in jeopardy. So they have to pretend that they're a couple, which I love that trope. The fake relationship trope. There's something kind of neat about it to me. So they're pretending that they're together. And then his mom says, hey, I want you to come stay with us for an extended amount of time. And he agrees, so she has to go with him. And love ensues from there. I found it sexy in certain ways, but it wasn't steamy. There was no sex scenes in it. I was able to use my imagination when I wanted to and in whatever ways I wanted to. The relationship itself was very healthy, I thought, which I've noticed a lot of books lately have very unhealthy relationships. And I don't know if that's been going on for a long time. I think it probably has been. I just never noticed it when I was younger because I thought unhealthy relationships were normal. I was very excited about how healthy this relationship was. Oh, and the book was funny too. I don't even know how many times I laughed. I really enjoyed it. And I listened to the audio version of this, but I want to get a physical copy. Actually, I want to get a physical copy of any of the books I've mentioned here that I listened to the audio version of instead of physically read, because I think when a book's so good that it's in your top books of the year, it's probably worth rereading. I found myself even getting emotional in certain parts of the book. I just thought it was so good, and I hope they make it into a movie. I think it'd be a really fun movie. My number 3 favorite fiction book of the year was Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I thought this book was so endearing. It's about a girl named Annie who, here we go again, gets dumped by her boyfriend. And he doesn't treat her very well at all, I don't think. But she decides to start over in a new town. So she moves to this new town and she's trying really hard to make friends and fit in. The theme of this book is to follow your instincts and to not be so eager to have people in your life that you let people that aren't healthy for you into your life. I loved the flawed human characters in this book. I don't remember there being any petite, beautiful, skinny, rich, so on and so forth characters in here. If there were, I don't remember them. But the personal growth, here we go again, that Annie had was really sweet and endearing. And I did not really find it to be a thriller until closer to the end. And even then it was kind of, is it a thriller? I don't know. But it was very quirky and witty in the writing, to where once again I was laughing a lot. My number 2 favorite book of the year was Insomnia by Sarah Pinborough. Now, my top 2 favorite books of the year have a decent amount of people that didn't like them. But that's okay. I'm entitled to my own opinion and you're entitled to yours. So if you don't agree with me on these, no shade, I get it. In this book, we're spending time with Emma Averill. She has a high-powered legal career. She has 2 beautiful children and a gorgeous husband. He's a stay-at-home dad, and she just loves her life. But then it occurs to her that she's turning 40 soon, and she has it in her head that when she turns 40, she's going to turn into her mother in the worst way. But she doesn't want to turn into her mother, especially not in the worst way, because all she really remembers about her mom are negative things. She starts getting insomnia. All these crazy things start happening to her. She starts questioning everyone in the book, whether she can trust anyone, even herself. She starts questioning her sanity. She can't sleep. I couldn't sleep while I was reading it either. I kept wanting to listen to more of the book. I really wished that I had a physical copy of this one, because I had such a hard time at night not being able to keep listening. Whereas if it's a paper copy of a book, I can keep reading at night, whether my husband is sleeping or not. I guess I could put earpods in, but I hadn't thought of that. I was guessing all the way to the end. I did guess a few things correctly, but I kept questioning if I was correct or not, which I love that. A lot of the characters were unlikable. It had a very unreliable narrator. It was a slow burn at times, but really high-paced at other times, which is the formula for me. I also felt there was personal growth in this book with Emma. There was a twist at the end that a lot of people didn't like, and it was a little odd, but I kind of liked it. I am thinking about reading, what is the other Sarah Pinborough book that is so popular? Is it Behind Her Eyes? Let me know if you've read that one and if you think it's worth reading, or if you've read any of her other books and if they're worth reading. Have you ever had an experience with a book where it touched you on a personal level? It's kind of weird because I read books so that I can step outside of my life and go into someone else's life and see what it might be like to be another person, to live in a different part of the world, to be a different age, to have lived in a different time, so on and so forth. But sometimes a book can remind me of myself in a certain way, and it makes me really attached to a character in a book, and it just really grabs my heartstrings. And this book did that, and it just meant so much to me, but I really enjoyed it. Obviously, it's my favorite book of the year. And it's maybe a little controversial because there's plenty of people on BookTube that did not like this book. And I'm glad I didn't listen to their opinions and decided to read it anyway because I love it so much. And that is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. In this book, we follow Jess. Jess is someone who's having a hard time getting her life together. She can't keep a job, and she's moving over and over and over again. Her life is just very unsettled, and she's lost yet another job. She calls her brother, Ben, who is the opposite of her. He's got a career. He's good looking. He lives in this great apartment in Paris. He's everything she's not. That's where I get so attached to Jess. I was like her when I was in my 20s and some of my 30s, and I had siblings that were very successful, and I really felt like that, like kind of like the black sheep of the family kind of thing. And so it just really endeared me to her right away, just that feeling of feeling like you don't fit in with your family, but loving your brother so much anyway, even though you're not as good as him. She arrives to find this apartment that's so much nicer than she thought he could afford. And he's not there. And he's disappeared. And she doesn't know what happened to him. And so she starts investigating the apartment, the whole building, her brother, his life, what happened to him. And I just thought it was so sweet that she loves her brother so much that she will do anything to find him and to find out what happened to him. And I feel the same way about my brothers. It just really meant a lot to me. It was a very personal book for me. And it's supposed to be this thriller, but I didn't really feel like it was a thriller. It was more like a family drama with a little bit of mystery sprinkled in. But I loved reading about another character in the book that wasn't human, and that is this apartment building. It's this huge mansion that's been converted into an apartment building, and I loved it. I loved the characters. They were all quirky and weird and kind of unlikable, but it was kind of like watching that movie Clue, where it was like all these different characters that I had on a list, and I'm checking them off. Oh no, it couldn't have been Miss Scarlett with the candlestick. It just felt like that to me. And they would have this beautiful mystery to it. I enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed the tempo. And like I said, as unlikable as she was, I love Jess because Jess is kind of me in some ways when I was younger. I can't wait to reread this book. As far as Lucy Foley goes, I have read, I have read The Hunting Party, and I gave that one 4 stars, but I have not read any of her other books. So if you think that I would like any of the other ones, let me know. But boy, do I love this book. And I love the cover. I like up close shots of buildings on covers for some reason. There's just something about it that's just kind of endearing to me. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if any of them made your top books, or if you enjoyed any of them, if you didn't enjoy any of them. And also, let me know what your favorite books of the year were. I hope that you had as good of a 2022 as I did. The first half of the year, I was starting to wonder how I would even do this video because I didn't enjoy that many books. I kept thinking, well, I liked Little Women and The Dutch House, and that's kind of where it ends. I couldn't even immediately think of anything else that I loved. And so I'm really glad that it was towards the beginning of fall, towards the end of summer, I started just loving reading again, and I came across just one good book after the other. And if I didn't like a book, I didn't even care anymore because I had such a good time reading the other books. And I'm hoping that 2023 is amazing as well. And I hope it's so good that I can't do my top 10 books of the year. I got to make it 15 because there's so many of them. Although I kind of like the 15 because I do have so many nonfiction and classics in there. And let me know if you don't mind what you think of that, of me adding 5 because of the nonfiction and the classics part. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day or night. Happy reading. Bye.